So I wanted to let everybody know, I heard your feedback around in the difficulty in accessing the meetings, et cetera, and having to do permissions one by one. So I worked over the weekend to create this dash disaggregated API for SONiC host. Can you see my screen, by the way?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
So I worked to create this channel, and this channel I've gone ahead and uploaded. There are playlists, and if you go here to the playlist section, there's the weekly community call. Then we have the high availability call and the behavioral model call. And you can see the number of recordings in each, 18, 3, and 6. And so I know we've had 20 community calls, but there was one time where the recording failed to upload, and I went through a whole thing with help desk for a long time. And it didn't get resolved. And then the second one, I just forgot to record the call. But if you go into this playlist, I've gone ahead and put the date for all of them, so you can find the date pretty easily for whichever meeting you're looking for. So I tried to keep a consistent format there.
That's
And
fantastic.
so, oh, good, good. And, I put these, when I sent the notes last time from last week, at the very bottom at the sticky links, it has the Teams link for the recording, and now it has the YouTube link for the recording. And so you'll be able to find it there. But if anyone, doesn't get those notes or something, just ping me and I'll send you a link to the channel.
That's fantastic.
Well, people were having some trouble, and I went through like our permissions on our side to make sure it was okay to do. So this is what I did on my weekend. How about you guys? Just kidding.
So we're going to get so many clicks. You really should monetize this. And this is going to be,
Monetize
this
it.
is going to go viral.
I don't know about that. It's a bunch of nerds talking about packets. But maybe.
I'm just having fun.
Yeah. So any questions on this, guys? No?
Really appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. So this goes all the way back to November 17th, which was our first call, up until the last one we had last week. Okay, good. So I'm gonna check in and see who else is on the call here. Okay, no, Gerald. So another thing, Michael Miele and I have gone ahead and revamped the high-level design, and we did put in a PR for it. And so but basically it's held in the general folder in the design section, and it's called high-level design here. And so we've gone and added more to each section. This is just the table of contents here. If you scroll down, though, we do the introduction, flesh out why we're doing dash, the objectives. And if you read through here, we talk about the different scenarios and try to do some drawings to further explain what we're doing. And then all of the different pieces of our project, whether it's testing SDN, the switch NOS, the SONiC switch NOS, P4 scenarios, testing. So if anyone wants to have a look at this, I put this in the notes last week, but it is quite a bit more fleshed out.
Christina, I haven't followed completely everything, but I think one of the pieces that is missing here is a sort of roadmap and phases. For the moment, the attempt has been to broaden this Dash API as much as possible to cover everything that come up to our mind. But I think if we want to be successful in delivering something, we need to phase this feature in a sort of roadmap in which we say, okay, no, we have a release 1.0 that has this goal, we have a release 2.0 that has this goal, and then we have a release 3.0 that has that other goal. I don't, personally, but willing to listen to all the other on the call, I don't think that is realistic to put in release 1.0 all what we have discussed up to now.
Right. And I think that, you know, in the VNet to VNet scenario is where we wanted to at least have some of the functionality like routes, ACLs, high availability.
But it's not only that. Do we do GNMI in the first release? Do we do high availability in the first release? Do we do, I mean, it goes on and on and on. Do we do SONiC in the first release? Which kind of SONiC do we do?
Gotcha. And I did have Gerald coming today to talk more about the SONiC piece. So you're saying that we should have more of a roadmap view of the features per release, kind of scheduled out in a timeline. Yeah.
Yeah, because in that way, we know what we need to prioritize in our development.
Okay, that makes sense. I can always work on something like that.
It makes a lot of sense, and I would imagine there'd be a release 1.0 would be actually something that you could consider production with, you know, very carefully selected set of features minimum, and then there might be some point releases before that are integration points like 0.1, 0.2, 0.3 that may not have, for example, GNMI might not be available in 0.1, but it might be available in 0.8, for example, right? What we want to do is decouple the critical paths as much as possible, right?
Okay.
So that no one's blocking the main progress.
Okay,
I think
that
it's
makes
a good
sense.
idea. It might need some brainstorming, right? We could get together and brainstorm some
Right.
straw man plans.
Right, okay. That makes sense. I can work on that, Solano. Thank you for the feedback.
Christina, may I add a couple of points? So, Silvano, that's a good point. We were thinking about that. The thing is, we are working on defining the pieces of this puzzle, at the same time trying to figure out, the steps. So the point is well taken. Probably we need to have a brainstorming session like Chris is suggesting. Perhaps when we create a PR about that, creating a roadmap for the various possible release, so the community can participate in defining, because you guys know better the details, how the things are going to shape up. Agree with that. And this probably will go very well along with this high-level design document that tries to define the context in which all these things are happening. So, yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah, I mean, for example, I'm very skeptical to put high availability on this one.
Again, Silvano, I didn't understand.
For example, I am very skeptical of putting high availability on this one. I'm very skeptical of putting GNMI on this one.
Yeah. Well,
I mean, and SONiC is something that we haven't discussed enough. And I don't have an opinion on SONiC because we simply didn't have discussed it enough. I don't even know if all the people on this call have the same understanding and agreement on SONiC.
Well, I know we do have Prince on the call. He's from the SONiC team, and we've had some internal conversations. I was waiting for Gerald to join the call. So I'll put a pin in that until I can grab him. Did anyone have a question for Prince?
Hey, Krishna. Yeah, I'm here.
Hey.
What I missed the question. Is there any question?
Silvana, go ahead.
No, my question is, in looking at phasing in the different feature, if we prioritize the serious appliances, it seems to be the case in the documents also. And if the serious appliance has a processor complex plus a bunch of DPU, I don't think we had enough of a discussion on what goes on the processor complex, what goes on the DPU, what kind of functional partitioning there is. And if we run SONiC, how are we going to run? I assume we run SONiC, but how are we going to run it? Because, let me put out the bold statement that everybody can disagree. I think running the whole SONiC on the DPU is an overkill.
So I think that's where we have the SONiC HLD. Will be planning to have a discussion in the next or the coming community meeting. But the idea is not to run the whole SONiC. It will be only those containers and those processes that are relevant for this appliance scenario. Yeah.
You mean the
Yeah, but it's
containers
also
that-
not clear to me at the end of the day if the main CPU complex present the interface, the management interface outside, the GNMI interface outside, or if each individual DPU present the GNMI interface outside. What I'm basically trying to say is, from a management perspective, this serious applied, is it one entity? Is it multiple entity? What is it?
So we have, I think that part is also kind of being discussed, but I think the last update I had was like it will be like one management entity, whereas internally the SONiC can manage the associated DPUs within the same subsystem. So it will be like exposed as one northbound API.
And that's great. We just need to understand how now the question of functional partitioning really become very important, because if we have a single interface from the outside and we need to propagate to a different DPU, we really need to understand the functional partitioning between the main CPU and the DPU.
But hey, Prince, this can only happen when you have an external CPU, which is the use case of a smart switch.
Mm-hmm.
But if you have an appliance where you have a bunch of DPUs with no external CPU, then each DPU has its own management entity, correct?
Absolutely, yeah. Then it will have its own SONiC instance on that DPU, yeah.
But,
So
to be honest, the serious appliance depicted on your document, the document that is shown there, show a management CPU.
Shows what? I missed that.
A management CPU. I was there. I look at that.
Yeah, this is a separate switch running just the SONiC, regular SONiC network.
No.
operating
But
system.
you have a picture where you show the container. This one. This.
Yeah.
No, the previous one. The previous one. Here.
Mhm.
Yeah, that one. No, you went down too much. You went up too much. This one. This
Okay.
one, I assume that the first two dash block on the left run on the on some CPU.
So I think this is the case of a smart switch
Yep.
device, right? So there in that it will have like one SONiC running on smart switch, and internally it manages all the associated DPUs. But if the DPU itself is an appliance, then SONiC will be running as an instance in that, and then the controller or the northbound can be used to program that DPU. So it depends on how we are
Using it.
yeah, correct.
Christina, but talking about phases, if you go up one more, one DPU diagram, one DPU, just one DPU. Yeah, without plans, without nothing, just one DPU. This one. So is this the case that the phase 0, phase 1, or phase whatever you want to call, where we have to prove that we can talk to the DPU? One DPU, nothing in between. One DPU on the card. So this will flesh out probably some of the basic, mechanism. Then there is more complex, configurations where with the switch, smart switch and the appliance. That's will have another phase, like Sylvain is saying. So would be more appropriate to start fleshing out the first part. If we put this diagram there, means that we need to implement this and see how we can, have a SONiC running on DPU, on one DPU. Maybe I'm wrong.
My understanding was that the current focus of Microsoft, at least of Gerald, in the last period, has been 100% smart switch.
Smart switch.
So
the way that
I
we
think
are
that smart
looking
switch
for-
should be the first deliverable.
Okay, well, maybe I misunderstood.
So actually what
No.
we're doing in the lab is we're working on the appliance now. And the next iteration would be Smart Switch. And we have the RFI out
Okay.
for Smart Switch, yeah.
Yeah, the only RFI that is out is for Smart Switch.
What's that?
The only RFI that is out
Smart
is
Switch,
for
yes.
Smart Switch.
Yep.
So that I think set the priority.
Okay.
Well, but we have proof of concept and going out into the data centers with some appliances.
So I don't know where that smart switch priority came up, but so far our discussion has been always around the single DPU, and the design discussions were on that. Maybe someone
Yeah,
can
that's
correct.
what I
Otherwise,
understood.
is raising some interesting point that it may confuse people that didn't get an RFI for a DPU appliance, but they did get an RFI for smart switch, and this may confuse about the priorities, and it's not that clear that first deliverable will be a DPU appliance.
Thanks, Marty. Yeah, that's what Microsoft is working on right now. What other companies are doing, I'm not sure. But when I joined the team, the appliance was the first priority. With Smart Switch, really the focus is more, it'll be towards Smart Switch in the future when the technology suppliers can create these devices. But to move forward with the technology and the DevOps part of things, we move forward with the appliance.
Yeah, but Christina, my understanding is that the appliance is a smart switch in which the switch is a cross connect. Is used as a cross connect, but it has a switch.
The appliance is an appliance. It's just, two servers in a rack with DPUs and then a regular SONiC TOR acting as the T0. It's not all combined. A smart switch, it would all be combined into the same fixed form chassis, or not chassis, fixed form module, 3RU, 2RU kind of unit.
That's fine, Christina, but even if you consider the appliance today, it has a main CPU. I haven't seen anything that asks for a board that has only DPUs without a CPU.
so yeah, the appliance card has a CPU. Yes, so I don't understand the point here. So
Well, it has a CPU, the CPU runs something.
So the server CPUs aren't really doing much in the servers. And then we have the DPUs inserted into those servers where, they'll be running SONiC and managed, through the interface. And the regular SONiC TOR is just a TOR.
Definitely, it's simpler to start with the standalone DPU and complete that design first and go into more complex designs of smart switch.
That's what I understood.
Question for Prince. In the HLD that you were talking about for SONiC on DPU, is the dash container part also included in that HLD?
Yeah. So that will be like the GNMI container where it accepts the northbound implementation or the northbound APIs. But for the GNMI itself, it will be a different document from the SONiC perspective. Yeah, but I have included that in my HLD as well.
Right, and I thought we had linked to it. I'm trying to find the link while we're talking, so.
Yeah, when we talk about integration, yeah, that's right.
Somebody's phone's ringing. Yeah, so this is the one we're talking about?
Yeah.
Call from Griffith WI.
I'm wondering if someone can mute the.
Yeah,
Thanks.
muted.
Yeah, this is the one, right, Prince?
Yes, that's right.
So down here, Reshma, is where Prince had written the SONiC part of the HLD.
Okay, that would be great. I think definitely would be useful to look at it first.
So that's linked from the, in here under the SONiC integration part of the main HLD, then it's right here.
Okay.
So it sounds like we need to have more clarity around, we are going to be running SONiC, but which containers we pick to run where as we move through the appliance, the smart switch, and then a regular DPU.
Christina, may I make a suggestion?
Mhm.
So let's use these high-level design documents, including the SONiC integration document, obviously, to flesh out the phases. If it's possible, that's an idea. I'm not saying should go this way. So they may answer the question that Sylvain is asking, because the main reason for having this document is just to create the context and give space to this kind of discussions. If we don't have anything in front of our eyes and diagrams, they may be not correct, but those diagrams will define the boundaries in which we are reasoning. So this could be a way to start moving forward, and we create a PR that also included the various phases that we are thinking that may happen. And with the discussion about, smart switch, one DPU, multiple DPU appliance, and all that, so that we can put more information in this kind of documents, linking to two phases, perhaps maybe in a different document that will define these phases. But that's what I'm thinking. So we can just talk in concrete terms about these things we're talking about. So we have a way to discuss.
Right, because I think the engineering team, took a swing at milestones and scoping here in the transforms document where, we're on scenario 1 right here. Yeah, VNet to VNet routes, least longest prefix match in ACL. And this is kind of where we are, and this was engineering's thoughts of how we'd move forward with the different add-ons or features, whether it's load balancing, private link, service tunnel, and they do have HA, like you guys said, down here in scenario 6, but I believe they've moved that up and want to integrate this into scenario 1. So Silvano, I see what you're saying, where you're not sure it's achievable in, scenario 1 milestone, but this is, I believe, where they took a swing at defining their timeline, but we can make it better.
Yeah, and that's as a matter of fact, if scenario 1 is VNet to VNet, then they should go along with this discussion, because that's where the rubber hits the road, because that's where the implementation is going to come to bear with all the steps that required to make the scenario work.
Right. And we're also working on behavioral model to enable this scenario work on behavioral model and HA and smaller working groups. Mm-hmm.
But you see, Christina, what really confused me is this. The RFI require a smart switch by the end of this year.
Yeah.
But if we want to do a smart switch by the end of this year, we need to define dash for smart switch before the summer. Because otherwise, when are we going to implement? That is why I don't understand this timing. I was all okay, but then, when I check the timing of RFI, that says, okay, then the focus must be 100% smart switch.
Yeah, we're developing, SONiC for the DPU, and we're developing the pipeline, and, the hope is to have it completed by the time Smart Switch comes around, in possibly December 2022. That was the target. Because you can port the feature development. The DPUs can go in an appliance, they can go in a Smart Switch, they can, we can move those around. So.
No, not from what I understand from what was said before, because the Smart Switch will have a single management group, independently of a number of DPUs.
I think we are going to need to have Gerald come and talk to that, because we did meet on this week, and I
think Prince just said that before, no?
SONiC's going to
Or
run whether
Michael.
it's on the switch CPU or the DPU itself, and then the containers that we use within SONiC are what can be chosen, selected, or moved around. Did I get that
Yeah.
right, Prince?
Yeah, that's right.
Prince, are you planning for a HLD review of that in the SONiC community or here first and then SONiC community?
No, I think it will be here first.
Okay, great.
It's here first and then over to SONiC. So, okay, I will see if Gerald can join and discuss this more, but that was our understanding per meetings last week. We're also doing, let me stop presenting this screen. Actually, I'll present again. Michael and I have also been working on this document here, where you go down to packet. So this section of the document here where we talk about fast path, slow path, inbound, outbound, et cetera, we're working on improving this drawing, and we're probably going to integrate our changes probably later today. And so each of these boxes within the path will be filled out with more information. So we've been drawing that this last week, and we'll do a PR to insert those. Probably a little bit further up into the document and remove this piece. I don't know that this is super educational with all these blank boxes. So we worked on that this last week as well, and we'll do a PR.
Looks very detailed and comprehensive.
And also locating those diagrams where they belong, because they are disconnected from the descriptions.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a little bit harder to follow.
Right. So up here in the descriptions is where we talk about, okay, once we get a packet, then we need to determine direction, match the ENI, here, decap it if it came from SLB, do the GRE key. So we're probably going to move those fast path, slow path with each piece in each box, probably up here in this area, so that it can be a little bit more tied to the description. So, and we also went over the Smart Switch RFI answers yesterday, and sourcing will be working on including everyone for a response for if there are more questions with respect to schedule or anything else they want to know. So you guys should be expecting some kind of response from sourcing within the next week or so, I would think.
So it will not be because the deadline for the answer was today, May 11. No?
Yeah, well, timelines move.
Okay.
It's okay,
no problem.
Yeah, it's okay to move a week or two. Oh, hey, John, you had your hand up. I'm sorry. I didn't see that.
I think
So-
he double
John is
tapped.
mute.
I think he double tapped his mute button.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Okay, yep, sorry about that. I was saying, I completely agree with Silvano in terms of understand the phasing of what comes first. Do we need to support appliance and smart switch or just smart switch? Also, one of the concerns I have, and I've seen this a little bit throughout this process, is that when you focus on one thing, like say VNet to VNet, we can come up with an implementation for VNet to VNet, but if we don't have the full understanding of NAT, if we don't have the full understanding of HA, we'll come up with an implementation that's great at VNet to VNet, and then it's not an incremental thing to add HA. It may be that we have to completely redesign the way VNet to VNet works to now accomplish HA. So I agree that we need the phasing to know when things should be delivered, but I think we also need to understand, have a broader understanding of everything that's going to come in the later phases and how they're, what the requirements are and how they affect, for example, the data plane. As far as SONiC, it was my understanding, although I've been confused about this along the way, that in the appliance, each DPU runs sort of like a full instance of SONiC, and the SDN controller sees like every individual DPU in the appliance and controls every individual DPU in the appliance independently. That was my understanding. In the smart switch, the SDN controller sees like one instance of SONiC, and then that instance of SONiC, has some kind of like southbound APIs to the individual DPUs, which themselves are running like a thin version of SONiC, like a lighter weight version of SONiC. And I just wanted to make sure that my understanding of that is correct. It would be nice from my perspective if the appliance kind of had the exact same architecture in terms of SONiC, meaning like that there would be a management CPU that would have that same kind of southbound interface to the DPU. It seems like there's a burden, like a development burden, to be able to support kind of like two different variants of SONiC on the DPU, depending on whether it goes in an appliance or in a smart switch.
Yeah, and we've had that conversation this last week, and the thing is we need to determine the resources that will be consumed on the hardware when we're deciding where and what containers of SONiC will be used. And so that's why we are stepping through, now that we're getting closer and we have SONiC, we can start, and maybe James can chime in here, but then we can evaluate, what kind of usage, the memory, for example, and, will we need to make a change and move around the containers in the future? So yeah, I get what you're saying, and it's still kind of under review, under development, if you will.
Okay.
Because we have to see, how that impacts the performance, of the hardware, it's still a little bit up in the air. That's what I got from our last meeting. But if we can evaluate here in the next month and check out the consumption of memory, for example, then we would know more as we go forward.
Yeah, and I can add a little bit of color here.
Thanks, James.
Yeah, so one of the things that we're doing as SONiC moves on to the DPU is we can look at like an individual flow, we can look at ACLs, we can look at policy, we can just look at kind of like any individual unit of allocation that we might move to the DPU. And then collectively, that will let us understand what the memory footprint will look like a little bit better. And I think in general, we've given some guidance that like 200 gigabits per second is generally paired around with like 32 gigabytes of memory, or I said 200 gigabits per second, I think, but in general, that's where we are. And then as we have more time with SONiC OS on the DPU, we can get really granular with it and share that with folks. And does that make sense?
But I guess it makes sense. But like when you say like 200 gig of 200 gigabits per second of throughput, like you believe that will equate to needing 32 gigabytes of memory on the DPU. I'm not sure how you determine that. I mean, obviously, some of that memory is for SONiC and for databases and different things that are in SONiC itself. But of course, there's a lot of memory that's dedicated to the data plane for the flow table, for example. And I think that the size of the flow table may be very vendor specific. I mean, some vendors might be able to store flows more efficiently in their data plane than others. So like, it's not clear to me like what the breakdown of that 32 gigabytes is.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's what we're working towards. And so like you're correct that there's certainly if you know that your flow table takes up a bunch of space, you know, make considerations for that. But generally we're looking around a few gigabytes for OS, and then flow table is kind of like the biggest chunk of memory allocation, and then we kind of go from there. And so 32 to 200 is guidance, but it's not necessarily right every time. But there's it's there's a sliding scale where you allocate out connections per second bandwidth and memory use, and you kind of want them all to be sized to each other. And so you're exactly right in saying that there's going to be some variance in the memory usage, but at least once we get to the SONiC OS sizing, we can get a little bit more specific for you folks.
I want to make a suggestion. I think when we come up with some representative test cases, Keysight's working on some performance test cases right now, scale testing. And I think maybe besides just providing figures of merit for connections per second, et cetera, packets per second, we probably ought to, as a community, agree on a few, let's say, memory and resource scale benchmarks. I mean, okay, here's a set of here's a configuration you can load into your device, and vendors can look at the implementation and see how much memory they need for data plane. Microsoft can look at how much it eats up in SONiC database, et cetera, and we can have some figures of merit. Maybe that could be a secondary, and then we'll have agreed upon a table. Here's the configuration 1 through X, and people can do their internal and external measurements.
So Chris, that's a great suggestion, and what you're trying to do is you're trying to put some bounds on that and make it real. So I think that's fantastic, and we should probably make that a commitment. It would certainly help folks have a reference point to what something looks like, and kind of within the same idea, there's the bounds, the idea of trying to box this by establishing like a min and max footprint. And so those are also things we're looking at, but that is a great suggestion.
Thanks.
Thanks, James. I think that's helpful. And if we've closed on that, in other news, Marian gave us a fantastic demo last week. If you weren't able to join the call, maybe take a peek at the video. So that happened. We're still working in the high availability working group towards, the requirements, definitions, and quite a few of you have joined that. So thank you for that. And we're also still moving forward with behavioral model work items, and we'll have that meeting this Thursday. So other than that, I guess I'd like to open up to any other questions, or we could possibly end early today.
Christina, just want to add that now that the behavioral model has been demoed, we'd like to start the integration of SciPTF framework to use the behavioral model, and would like to start an email exchange with Chris Summers from Keysight and Marianne and yourself to start the planning and the work for that.
That would be great. That would be awesome. And Reshma, did you say we would have a demo upcoming, or is that in the summer, midsummer?
The planning
SciPTF,
the SciPTF, now that the behavioral model is there, we will start integrating that with help from Chris. And then we have to start upstreaming some of that code that we are developing for the dash side and integrate that and with the behavioral model and do that demo. That date specifically has not yet been
Not yet.
planned. Yeah.
Okay. Great. I'm keeping my notes here so I know to check back. Okay. Thank you. Okay, and that's all the notes I had for this week. We do have the translation of the JSON to SONiC Yang over in engineering's hands right now, SDN engineering's hands, and we're hoping to have a review of that possibly by next week. So thank you, Prince, for doing that work. And unless anyone has anything else, I can stop the recording and we can close for the week.
Can I just ask a clarifying question on that last statement about the SONiC, the Yang to SONiC JSON? Does that mean we're going to have like a common representation of configuration that can be used to drive test cases? Prince, is that one objective of this?
Yeah,
Is that
that's
what that
right,
would do?
Chris. So it is a kind of standardizing the API and having everyone
Okay.
on the same page, right? So
That-
I will discuss that also in the coming meeting, going over the Yang. I'm getting some like feedback from internal teams on the
Great.
correctness of it. So yeah.
That's great. Just as a reminder to people, there've been earlier discussions about this kind of a test maturity stages, and one of the ideas that we proposed was we have a single way to represent the configuration that we can use to configure the data plane through different APIs up the stack. You know, Psi interface, Psi Redis, eventually GNMI, and all the interfaces should be able to be driven by a common representation of test cases or test vectors. And then some translator would turn it into the right interface. So we don't have to keep rewriting every test at every level. So that's a goal. So this JSON format is key to that. It's kind of the Rosetta Stone. So I look forward to seeing that come out and then we can start playing with it.
But Chris, I have some doubt there. I mean, it seems to me that the abstraction level of a Psi and of a GNMI are completely different. So how can be the test case the same?
Well, just sort of in high level terms, if I want to configure a mapping or a ACL rule, I should be able to, in English, I can say, here's the IP address 1.2.3.4, right? You can put that in JSON, and then a Python script or a wrapper or a translator can say, I'm going to turn that into a GNMI message. I'm going to turn that into a Psi thrift configuration, etc. The mapping's pretty straightforward, right? There's not a lot of transformations. It's really just reformatting almost. And so that should be a mechanical process. That's the goal. Versus writing completely separate siloed sets of tests that are all 90% the same content, but different details. And then these test cases all drift and get maintained separately, and there's no correspondence. That's something I'd like to avoid. So
my understanding, and maybe I'm wrong here, is that the GNMI concept, like policy group concept, very high, much higher level concept, while the Psi it's much lower level executable concept like ACL. So unless
I don't think that's the case, but maybe someone can
Okay.
correct me. I don't think there's a huge transformation from one layer to the next. I think it's almost just like a formatting. Because
so basically this agent that run on the DPU, this Bluebird agent or whatever it's called, just does a one-to-one transformation.
I don't want to say yes or no. I'd rather have Prince tell me if I'm off base or not. My impression is the mappings are sort of simple.
Yeah, I think it is intended to be simple. Yeah.
I mean, you could almost write a Python program, given this JSON file, emit 3 different APIs with the same IP address, and they'd almost look the same except for the wrapping, right? in the schema. That's my understanding. It's not like a huge transformation.
Yeah, that's right. Agree.
So,
But
thank
I'm
you.
sorry, but if this is the case, then SONiC is not really adding any value. SONiC on the
Actually,
GPU. If,
SONiC adds value in a couple of different ways. Microsoft in our cloud, we don't have the resources to support multiple command line API, et cetera, you know, when we're in an operations phase. And so what SONiC gives us is the one mechanism for our engineers and our duty responsible individuals and the people troubleshooting they have one way to access and troubleshoot, you know, the infrastructure. And secondarily with SONiC, we have a lot of compliance already with like our government customers and, you know, compliance certifications. And so we have that advantage there with SONiC and SONiC Dash.
Yeah, I mean,
Plus
it's common.
security.
It's
Single
security.
management interface.
yeah, I mean, there's a lot going on there, including persistence, and you know, there's all kinds of plumbing going on that's already built into a lot of data center infrastructure, right? So
Yeah,
even though
I mean,
this
it's
makes our
kind
test,
of like, oh, sorry, Chris, go ahead.
just because our test cases are going to be easy to write in this one case, because the Dash API is transparent almost through all the stack, you know, the data objects are the same. That doesn't mean SONiC in general isn't an appropriate approach, right? For all these other 100 reasons. So this is just.
no,
If you
no,
can
but I
imagine
didn't
from
mean
like
this.
a switch perspective, you know, we've got Cisco, we've got Arista, we've got SONiC on Celestica, for example, and our network engineers and our people have to know all the commands for the different operating systems, et cetera. And so, you know, we can't consume more than a certain number of operating systems into our infrastructure and still support it. And so that's kind of likening it to the switch area, except for now we're in the DPU area. Go ahead, Mario. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No problem. No, but what I meant to say, I didn't explain myself well. I didn't mean SONiC in general doesn't have any value. I meant SONiC on the DPU. You know, if you have SONiC in, for example, in the case of the smart switch, on the CPU of the smart switch, that's where you're gonna do your CLI, and then on the DPU, you don't necessarily need SONiC. You just have a server.
We want to have our operations and our architecture team, like Liwa and those guys, they want to have control of the DPU, and SONiC allows us to do that.
Yeah, but there's no question, Christina. But the question is, SONiC where?
On the DPU.
Good.
And on the switch.
But if a DPU is not an IP addressable unit, because the interface is of the switch, I don't understand how this works.
Well, again, we're working through that now as we understand the resources that are consumed when we have SONiC on the NPU versus the DPU and what we talked about with James. So I think as we move forward and understand, you know, how the resources are consumed, we'll know more. But right now, I don't know that we have the exact answer. Because, you know, we can move the containers and databases around. We can do, you know, different configurations to see what's optimal performance.
You know, at the end of the day, DPU are resource limited device. The more you run other stuff on the DPU, the less CPS and the less PPS you have. Mm-hmm. That is the bottom line.
Right.
That is the trade-off you're going to face.
Yeah.
And since my impression is that you want to have a very high CPS, you need to minimize the overhead that you're going to run.
Yeah, definitely. We have to balance that with our operations as well, though. You know, we have to be able to see in and control the DPU from a single point so that we're not running multiple operating systems to support in the Azure infrastructure. We have millions of nodes, millions, and it's just not scalable.
I think I agree with Christina here. So the point is we want kind of a standardized you know, OS for managing the DPU. The other thing is we totally understand about the performance part. So that will be one of the main priority for you know, running SONiC on the DPU and considering the scaling and performance will be a priority. Yes.
Yeah, hey, Christina and Prince, you initially, earlier in this meeting, you guys are showing a document which describes SONiC on DPU. So is this a PR, or do you want to share the link to that document, please?
Sure. We can do that in the chat window. Sure.
Thanks, Christina.
Okay. And I think in my last meeting notes, I sent out that we were revamping the HLD and I put the PR in there. Am I sharing my screen? Let me share my screen. I think it's in meeting minutes. So hopefully you received this, and at the very bottom, right here, number 3, refreshed dash HLD posted. Can you
Also,
see
it's not
that?
a separate, so it's not a separate document. It's just the HLD itself has a section on that.
Let's see what happens when I click it. Yeah, it just takes you here, and if you go into the PRs, I think we already approved the PR. That's what it is.
Yeah, that looks like it's already in main.
Yeah, so I'll go ahead and that's where it is. If you need me to send you a link, I can do that.
No, that's fine. I think
Okay.
I got
Okay.
it. Thank you.
Christina, we
Okay.
can always open a PR for discussing the document and allow
Yeah.
people to add comments.
Yeah, read through it, and if you
So-
feel like we need a PR, let me know, okay? All right. So if you guys like, I can give 5 minutes back or so. Is that a yes
Yep,
from
I'm good.
everyone? Okay,
Yes.
everyone can go get a cup of coffee or a drink before their next meeting. So I want to thank you for your time, and please ping me offline or in email, whatever, anything you think I need to be, like, for example, this schedule, anything that you want to see happen. I'm happy to take it in.
Thanks, Christina.
Okay.
Thanks, Christina.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.